Good day, everyone. I am Attorney Verdoguillo, and I will be one of your speakers for today's summit on the topic Transpinay legal matters. So you might ask, no, are we going to talk about the anti-discrimination bill or the SOGI bill or the gender recognition bill? Unfortunately, no, because today we will be talking about the current realities or what is available to us in the law right now if we get harassed or discriminated in public. So, our topic is mainly on these areas only today. So, that's where we are going to revolve around this afternoon. And I have a series of questions here that will guide us through our discussion this afternoon. Okay? So, Transpinay legal matters. For the first question, what should a Transpinay do when faced with discrimination? Do's and don'ts when involved in an altercation in public places or venues. Okay, so right now we have the only law available, which is very trans-specific. The only law and recent law that is available to us is the Republic Act 11313 or the Safe Spaces Act. Okay, this is different from the Republic Act 7877, which is the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, because the latter, Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, this only involves situations where you get harassed in the workplace or in the educational institution or in training institutions. And in that setting, the harassment creates a hostile environment for you as a student or as an employee. Or if you refuse the sexual advances, you will not get promoted, you will not get the grade that you deserve. Or on the other hand, um, they are offering these sexual um, promises to you so that you can have a better opportunity in the workplace or uh, a better grade as a student. So in these circumstances, these are covered by the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. So it doesn't matter if you accepted the sexual offers or not, or the if you reacted violently or aggressively towards the person's touch towards you or not in the school setup or the work setup. It doesn't matter. For as long as it happened, you can complain under this law, the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. So again, this refers to school or work setup where the consideration for the sexual offers or the gestures, sexual gestures, is to, maybe promote you like that, or if you don't accept it, that you will be um, discriminated in the work, okay, even if you perform well. Now, we go back to the Safe Spaces Act, which is the more important law that is available to trans people right now. Um, because if you want to talk about discrimination, we don't have the anti-discrimination bill yet. There are anti-discrimination ordinances in specific local government units, which you must look into if you're in a specific LGU. You have to look into its availability if it's there, because you can use that law in case you get discriminated in that jurisdiction of the uh, LGU. Okay? So kung nandun ka na LGU ka nakatira or doon ka nagtrabaho, you have to look into the existence of an anti-discrimination ordinance. So you can use that in case you get discriminated in your workplace or in school. Okay? So you look into the provisions of that. You can ask copies of that from your LGU, or maybe it can be found online. Okay? But as to the national law on SOGI or anti-discrimination bill, we don't currently have that. So what is mostly available to us now is the Safe Spaces Act. Okay, so what is covered under the Safe Spaces Act? These are gender-based streets, public spaces sexual harassment, which includes catcalling, wolf whistling, unwanted invitations, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and sexist slurs, persistent, uninvited comments or gestures on a person's appearance, relentless just request for personal details, statement of sexual comments and suggestions, public masturbation or flashing of private parts, groping, or any advances, whether verbal or physical, that is unwanted and has threatened one's personal space and physical safety, and committed in a public space such as alleys, roads, sidewalks, and parks, and other public places. So this can be committed on a lot of places which are deemed public. Okay. So again, these are common to trans people. Let's say you're walking down the street and a group of men are calling you out, Raul, or something like that, something derogatory as a trans person. And even if it's just verbal, they didn't do anything to you, they attacked you, or they just made those transphobic slurs towards you, um, which are uninvited and which invades your personal space, even if you're in a public area, but you were walking, you're minding your own business, and you have your own personal space, and they invade that, and it hurt you, or it bothered you. So in that, they can be penalized under this Safe Spaces Act. So there's this law that protects you on that. Okay. So this doesn't just happen on the streets or in areas which are deemed public as in outside. It can happen in schools, churches, or restaurants, malls, buildings which are literally open to the public. Even if it's not in the outside, if it's inside a building, if that building is open to the public, that's deemed a public place. Okay. Public markets or transportation or public utility vehicles. So these are places where gender-based sexual harassment can be committed. So at least you know this law. And after this discussion, you can in fact go over this law again, because this will really help you in a lot of harassments in public that you may experience. Okay, so where is it committed? So among the places where it can be committed is in the restaurants and cafes, bars and clubs, resorts and water parks, hotels and casinos, cinemas, malls, buildings, and other privately owned places open to the public. So what are there, for example, in the mall, you were harassed. Someone made a comment regarding you being trans, which you did not want to hear. It really, so the essence of this law is really, if someone makes a transphobic comment or sexual comment towards you or gesture, and it bothers you. The basis really is just that it bothers you, or yung nasaktan ka or makes you feel uncomfortable. So in those situations, if it made you feel that way, know that your feelings are valid, and you can look into this law, because those who did that to you can be penalized under this law on Safe Spaces Act. And these establishments that I mentioned, they are obliged to provide assistance to victims of gender-based sexual harassment. And they can coordinate with the local police authorities immediately after the gender-based sexual harassment is reported. So you can report to the management immediately after it happens in their vicinity. You can speak to whoever is the head of that establishment, and they are obliged to provide assistance to you under this law. Okay, so it's law that they have to follow it. Okay, so and they can in fact provide CCTV footage, which will be available when ordered by the court if it goes to court. And they must provide a safe, gender-sensitive environment to encourage victims to report gender-based sexual harassment. Okay, so again, they should not be discriminatory towards people or victims who come to them for help or assistance. Okay, they must provide a safe space for people like us, so that we will not be afraid to report instances or occurrences such as these sexual harassments. Okay, so again, this is law, and it is their obligation to assist us in case we experience sexual harassment in their vicinity, in these places. Okay, so what if it happens in a public utility vehicle? So if it happens and you report it to the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, they may in fact suspend or revoke the franchise of the transportation operator. Okay, if it happens there, for example, the driver does it to you, um, but syempre, if it's a private individual who does it to you inside that vehicle, that's another thing. That's a uh, considered just the same sexual harassment in public places, but you cannot ask for the suspension or revocation of the franchise of the transportation operators because they did not have anything to do with that unless they parang may ginawa sila to contribute to the suffering that you may experience because of the sexual harassment. Okay. And then streets and public spaces committed by minors. So alam naman natin na dito sa Pilipinas, meron talagang maraming minors din na hindi na pagsabihan ng kanilang mga magulang ng mabubuting asal. Kaya um, minsan may sinasabi din silang transphobic slurs towards um, the trans people. So when they do that, under the Safe Spaces Act, you can actually report them to the DSWD. So just like any other crimes which are committed by minors, it is always the DSWD who shall take the necessary disciplinary measures. Okay? So kahit minor yan, it's important that you report them. And the DSWD will act accordingly so that they will learn their lesson at a young age, diba? They will not be imprisoned or anything, but they will be disciplined. Okay, at least they will know that what they did is wrong. Okay, so in case, again, if it is committed by a minor. Streets and public spaces. Okay, so again, maybe this can be yung what I said earlier, if it happens in a utility vehicle, public utility vehicle, but it's not the driver who committed it. So you can ask for the revocation of their license, okay, if they did not have anything to do with it. But it can be considered under here, streets and public spaces. And you can report the sexual harassment towards you through the Metro Manila Development Authority, MMDA, the local units of the Philippine National Police, specifically on the Women and Children Protection Desk of the PNP, which shall have authority to apprehend perpetrators and enforce the law, provided that they have undergone prior gender sensitivity training. Okay, so again, these law enforcement authorities who we can go to in case we experience sexual harassment in public places, we have to go to, well, this is required of them naman. So in most PNP stations, there is always the Women and Children's Protection Desk. And you can usually, obviously, they have been to gender sensitivity training. So you can go to them to report instances of sexual harassments in streets and public spaces, okay? And only those, again, who had training on gender sensitivity can apprehend and can discuss on these matters with the victim, okay? Pero unfortunately, again, in the Philippines, even if this is available, the Women and Children's Protection Desk, and even if the law tells us that we can go to them, if inherently they are still very transphobic and they do not understand our identity and who we are, so it will still be hard on our part in reporting these instances to these authorities, no? Especially, maybe it's easier in larger cities, but maybe in smaller cities, which are not very open to the idea of trans people, maybe it would be harder, Anyway, gender-based online sexual harassment. So the definition of sexual harassment, which I said earlier, the sexual slurs, transphobic, homophobic, misogynistic slurs, physical or verbal actions towards you done by these perpetrators, they can be committed through online. Okay, so gender-based and online sexual harassment includes acts that use information and communications technology in terrorizing and intimidating victims through physical, psychological, and emotional threats, unwanted sexual, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and sexist remarks. and comments online, whether publicly or through direct and private messages, and so on. You can just read through this. Um, Basically, uh, if those acts were committed online, sexual harassment is committed online, which are which specifically is speaking about trans people, unwanted sexual, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and sexist remarks. If people make these comments towards you online, you can actually have them penalized under the Safe Spaces Act, okay? Because just like the real world or the public spaces, the online world is you also have a personal space in the online world. You also deserve to be at peace in your online um, scrolling or in your online life. Okay, you deserve peace, and if people invade your peace on in your social media through these actions that um, is defined there, then you can have them penalized under the Safe Spaces Act. Okay. So again, sexual harassment can also be committed in the workplace and in educational and training institutions. So the previous law that I was talking about, those are sexual harassments done. Um, Parang there is a consideration in doing the sexual harassment by the person with authority towards you. Okay? So yung taong, for example, a teacher or an employer touches you and that makes you uncomfortable, that's on the anti-sexual harassment law. If a teacher offers you sexual um, to do a sexual conduct so that you can get a higher grade, or an employer offers you to do something sexual as well so that you can get a promotion, even if you do not accept these offers, that's still covered under this anti-sexual harassment law. Okay, but when it comes to sexual harassments which are done through these means, which I mentioned earlier, yung mga misogynistic, transphobic comments, um, homophobic comments made towards you, um, even if they're verbal or physical gestures, okay, whatever it may be, and it made you uncomfortable because people are different. Certain levels of comments may be uncomfortable to one person, but it may be comfortable to the other person. It really matters on the person. And if the comment made you uncomfortable, so again, and it happens in a workplace or educational training institution, then the law that is to be considered is the Safe Spaces Act. Okay. So where to report? Again, if it happens in the public spaces and you cannot ask for assistance from anyone, for example, in your school, it's difficult to just go to your heads because you're afraid, or in the mall, the administrators there cannot seem to assist you, you can actually go to the PNP Women and Children's Desk. Uh, Under this law, okay, even if it involves trans people or gay people, because again, it talks about transphobic or homophobic remarks towards victims. So even if um, by definition, unfortunately, of our current system, uh, LGBT individuals are not within the definition of women and children. LGBT individuals, and especially trans women, can go to the PNP Women and Children's Desk. Okay, although we really belong there naman actually, di ba? In the PNP Women and Children's Desk in case you have complaints. Anyway, I'm just pointing that out. Pero we can go there, and by law, under the Safe Spaces Act, we can report acts of sexual harassment there in those in the PNP Women and Children's Desk. Okay. Now you may ask, we're talking about sexual harassment here, only those homophobic, transphobic slurs, acts or gestures committed towards you. What about when we're discriminated in our workplace or such as that? That is precisely where the anti-discrimination or SOGI bill should come in, because that is these are discriminations based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And if you are discriminated on that aspect, um, then it would be a great thing if that law exists, because we can use that to penalize those are ano who are those perpetrators. Okay, but unfortunately we don't have that. So the only thing available for us right now, in case we get discriminated in school or um, discriminated in our workplace, we have the labor code. We have the again in the schools, schools have their own rules. So um, there's also internal aspects that we have to deal there. Okay, but anyway, with what's available now and with what's usually experienced by trans women, um, sexual harassments in public places, we have at least, and we are happy that we have the Safe Spaces Act to protect us. Okay, and I encourage everyone to go over it, because this will be very helpful for you in case you feel unsafe in a public place because you were um, shamed by perpetrators. Now, the next question in our discussion today is, will a Transpinay be allowed to take videos of the discrimination? Do we encourage doing that? Is this the best thing to do in this situation? Unfortunately, we have this law, Republic Act number 4200, also known as the Anti-Wiretapping Act. So in this law, actually, I just want you to know that if you do that, if you do record acts like committed towards you, which are deemed sexual harassment or discrimination, if you do record that, know that this law could punish you or could penalize you. Except if the other party just don't care that you recorded the whole conversation or the whole thing, then it won't matter. You will be fine. Okay ka, hindi ka prosecute under the law. Pero if they would know this law as well, they could prosecute you, and that would be bad, diba? So anyway, ano ba itong Anti-Wiretapping Act? In the case of Salcedo Ortañez versus Court of Appeals, it held that unless there is clear showing that both parties to the conversation or to the recording allowed its recording, then the recording is illegal and may subject the person who made the recording to the penalties provided under the Republic Act number 4200. Okay, so this means that unless all parties in the recording agreed to the recording, you cannot do the recording. Otherwise, you will be uh, penalized under RA 4200. And we don't want that. Okay. So, thus, be careful who you record and what you record on your mobile phones. You may get into a lot of trouble if you do so without the consent of everyone who is part of the recording. Okay. So finally, it is settled, in fact, in Philippine law and jurisprudence that due to the inherent illegality of a video or audio recording without the consent of all parties done. So again, without the consent of all parties, the recorded conversation cannot be used in any proceeding or cannot be used by either party against the other, nor can be the basis of any claim or right. Okay, so ang meaning po nito ay in Philippine law, since recording video or audio recording of a circumstance or a situation without the consent of all parties involved is illegal. Since that act is illegal, you cannot also use that recording as evidence in court in case the problem or the issue escalates in court. Okay, because the subject video was obtained illegally. So the court wouldn't want to use that as well as evidence. No one can use it as evidence, either you or the other party. It's as if it doesn't exist because it was illegally obtained. Okay, so in short, hindi siya magagamit kung nag-record ka ng instance of discrimination or sexual harassment for purposes of evidence, pero wala namang consent sa lahat ng parties involved na mag-record ka. So pag ganun, hindi naman din siya magagamit as evidence pag umabot na kayo sa korte, sa pag trial nyo ng issue na yan. Okay? So again, And other than that, na hindi magagamit sa sa trial, at the same time, ikaw na nag-record ng walang pahintulot ng isang party sa sitwasyon na yon, pwede kang ma-penalize under RA 4200. So that's why it's very important na careful ka. Tapos, pero anyway, kung gusto mo pa rin itong gawin, in case may nangyari sa'yo na sexual harassment for purposes of awareness ng karamihan, or if you want to record a discrimination, pwede din naman po. It's just that know that the risk is there na you will be penalized under RA number 4200. Pero kung hindi naman mag-care yung isang party na hindi siya nag-give ng consent sa recording, then by all means, you can keep the recording because you cannot use it again as evidence din naman. So all you could do is keep it or show it to others by for awareness. But then again, if you do that, then the other party magagalit yun kasi nag-share ka ng gano'n. Tapos walang consent nila. So ayun, they could prosecute you under RA number 4200. So the best thing to do pag may mga nangyaring ganito is, if my witnesses, you gather their names, you ask for their help, na they will be with you and testify for you that they saw the discrimination or the sexual harassment happen. Okay, it's always the witnesses, the eyewitnesses, the people who saw the situation occur. Okay, sila yung importante sa mga ganitong pangyayari. Kasi again, if you record, it's very detrimental on your part. So the best thing to do is know who was there and ask for their help that they may testify for you. Pero if it happens in a place na ikaw lang naman isa, no one else was there, then that situation, you as a victim naman, your testimony has great weight naman. So it's up to the other party to show evidence that hindi yun nangyari or hindi niya intention na to make you feel that way. Okay, so it's really like that. But as to the recording aspect, mahirap, detrimental for your part. So again, as much as you can, gather witnesses that can help you. Okay. So would it be prudent for a trans woman to write about this experience in social media? Generally, and first and foremost, I would say it would not be so prudent because anything you write in social media may subject you for an action on cyber libel. So you may be prosecuted for cyber libel. However, you do have defenses available under the law. So pag you write about your experience, for example, in a resort, na sexually harassed ka ng isang employee nila doon, pinagsabihan ka nga, bakla, whatever, or something that hurt your feelings, and then you want to write about it on social media. It's very detrimental if you write about it on social media kasi you might be subjected to cyber libel again. So again, going back to what I said earlier, it's prudent to report these situations or occurrences immediately to the PNP Women and Children's Desk, or if not, and gather witnesses for you in case you do want to file a suit against these people. Okay, because again, if you want to write about it on social media, you can. There are defenses available to you. It's just that initially, or sa una, kung nagpo-post ka sa social media, malaki ang chance na they could file a cyber libel case against you. Pero kung may defense ka available under the law, you can protect yourself during the hearing, okay? And you will be acquitted or hindi ka mapapawalang sala ka, okay? If you are able to use these defenses that I will say in a while. But initially, ma-subject ka talaga sa kaso. Pwede ka talagang makasuhan ng cyber libel initially. Okay, pag nagpo-post ka sa social media. Okay. But again, it's up to the fiscal, it's up to the judge to assess everything, all the evidence available. Okay. So what is the risk that you're going to take if you post on social media? So we have the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. Okay. So in the Cybercrime Prevention Act, among the acts penalized under this law is the cyber libel. Okay, so the revised penal code, which is the basis for punishing cyber libel under Republic Act number 10175, otherwise known as Cybercrime Prevention Act, it defines libel under Article 353 as a public and malicious imputation of a crime or of a vice or defect, real or imaginary, or any act or omission, condition, status, or circumstance tending to cause the dishonor, discredit, or contempt of a natural or juridical person, or to blacken the memory of one who is dead. So, sorry. So basically, whether what you say or what you post online is real or imaginary or false, it doesn't matter. You can be prosecuted for cyber libel. Um, Also, it doesn't matter if it's a natural person. If yung pinopost mo doon ay tungkol sa may-ari ng business, okay, for example, or yung pinost mo ay tungkol sa business ng mismo. Walang taong tinutukoy doon, but the business lang mismo. In both cases, pwede ka pa rin ma-prosecute for cyber libel. Kung tao man o yung pangalan ng business ang parang sinisiraan mo sa social media. So in those instances, pwede kang ma-file ng cyber libel. Okay? So, again, sino yung mga taong magiging liable dito? Any person who shall publish, exhibit, or cause the publication or exhibition of any defamation in writing or by similar means shall be responsible for the same. So kung sino yung nag-post at pinost niya, tapos yung platform kung saan siya nag-post ay inallow yun na ma-post, so silang dalawa yung pwedeng ma-prosecute ng cyber libel. Okay, so anyway, ang point is, if you post on social media regarding these circumstances, usually naman talaga ang nangyayari is yung experience natin in restaurants, hotels, or resorts, yung mga ganito. In those instances, if we post it on social media, we should know the risk that we are going to take. There is a great chance that they could file a cyber libel case against us in case we post it on social media. Okay? Or experience or whatever harassment or discrimination was done towards us. Okay? So there is that risk. However, pag na-filean ka na ng kaso at malinis yung konsensya mo at totoo naman yung pinagsasabi mo doon, you can use these as defenses. Okay? So, for example, even general rule ito even if the offender is able to prove the truth of the defamatory statement, he is not relieved from liability. Okay? So kahit sasabihin mo na, totoo naman yung sinabi ko, pero kung yung purpose ng pag-post mo ay medyo may dalang malis, may dalang galit, may dalang revenge, parang gano'n, na mga motive, which will be seen during investigation. Pag may mga ganun, kahit totoo yung sinabi mo, kung may malis kang dala sa pag-post mo, you will still be prosecuted for cyber libel. So, by way of exception, proof of truth will exonerate the author of the defamation in the following. If the accused presents, in addition to proof of truth, good motives and justifiable ends. So, ito ang isang defense mo. Okay? If you do post online your experience on discrimination or harassment, for example, in an establishment, okay, you can use as defense the fact that your motives are good and you have and it's for the purpose of justifiable ends, okay? Yung pag-post mo. So that's your defense, but that's very hard to prove. You have to know that that's very hard to prove. You have to have a good lawyer to fight for you on that so that they can prove your good motive and justifiable ends in posting that. Because again, if may malice, may galit, may revenge in post mo, most likely you will still be prosecuted for cyber libel. So another defense is, again, kung yung parang taong pinag-usapan o yung topic mo sa post mo sa social media ay tungkol sa isang government employee or official at yung tinutukoy mo na actions niya are related sa trabaho niya bilang government employee or government official, pag ganun, That's also a defense, okay? Because you are just making a critic on their functions and their public functions, okay? It's a different story if parang you are attacking their person as in their personal capacity. That's a different story. Pero pag, for example, you were in a government entity, may transaction ka doon, tapos pinahirapan ka, or you were sexually harassed, like, baklang to, ganon. So you can actually, and then you want to talk about it on social media. So you talk about it on social media. So this could be a defense in case pa-filean ka ng cyber libel ng person na yon, you can use as defense the fact that government officer ka, and I'm commenting about your uh, public function as government officer, because that's not the proper way of being a that's not the proper way of serving the public. You have to be professional. So mga ganon defense. In those instances, then you can be acquitted from cyber libel. So, proven innocent ka at hindi ka ma-penalize. Okay? So, again, yun, that's important. It's just that pag nag-post ka talaga sa social media tungkol sa isang establishment or isang tao, initially, mapafilean ka talaga ng cyber libel. Tapos, to follow na yung mga defenses mo na available. Okay? You can, either sa prosecutor level or sa court na level, depende kung saan tutungo yung away nyo. So, doon, you can use these defenses, okay, in a case for cyber libel. So, there are also instances if journalist ka, okay, here, fair criticism. It's a fair criticism, okay? Because in the case of Supreme Court in the decision of the Supreme Court in Vasquez versus Court of Appeals, it quoted Justice Brandeis, who wrote in Whitney versus California that public discussion is a political duty, and the greatest menace to freedom is an inert people. Okay, so fair criticism is also protected. Okay, again, initially, pwede kang ma-filean ng cyber libel, but if you can prove fair criticism, okay, as a defense, then hindi ka ma-penalize. You will be acquitted. However, it says here, criticism should be directed at the conduct, but not at the person of the public official. So if you want to criticize a public official regarding their functions, criticize on their conduct or the way they handled things, how they treated you. Do not criticize on them as a person. Criticize on their actions, okay, if you want to speak about it on social media, so that in case they file a cyber libel case against you, you can use this as defense. It was a fair criticism on your actions, not on you, okay? Again, as I mentioned earlier, good motives and justifiable ends are defenses in a cyber libel case, okay? So if you're able to prove not only the truth, but also that it was published with good motives and for justifiable ends, because, for example, you want the public to be aware that this establishment is transphobic, like that. So for that, it's up to the fiscal and the judge to feel like, is that a justifiable end? Is that a good motive? So it's really up to the judge and the courts to determine that. And if they feel like it is a good motive and a justifiable end, then you will not be liable for cyber libel. So there's a lot of things. If it's cyber libel, each and every word that you said, how you said it, where you said it, a lot of things are going to be considered and weighed in evidence. So it's really a case-to-case basis. You cannot say, bakit siya ganun, acquit tapos ako hindi. It's really a case-to-case basis. That's why it is a risk if you post it on social media. This is just for your awareness naman, that if you do post it on social media, know that there is this risk. Okay, that is why we have to go back on a more active approach, no? Report it. Report acts of sexual harassment, transphobic slurs thrown towards you. Report it. Report it. Okay, and we hope that people of authority who are accepting these reports will not also be shaming us for reporting these harassments. We hope that they also cater to us and give us a safe space to speak about it, diba? Freedom of speech and of the press. Again, if you're a journalist, so you have this freedom of speech and of the press. Okay. This is one of the major purpose of the constitutional guarantees of freedom of speech and of the press to protect the free discussion of governmental affairs, as well as encourage and nurture uninhibited, robust, and wide open self-expression. So again, ang reason lang naman kung bakit pino-prosecute yung cyber libel is because that is not a protected speech. Because, syempre, usually the cyber libel, the very meat of cyber libel is that yung nag-post may galit, may malice, may revenge. Yung gusto niya talagang ipahiya yung establishment or yung person na pinag-uusapan niya doon. Okay? Kung merong ganon, it's cyber libel. But if again, good motives and for a justifiable end yung purpose mo, then you are exonerated. Okay? So again, how you say it, kung paano mo hanay yung pagsasalita mo sa social media tungkol sa mga pangyayari, it's very important how you do it and how you say it and where you say it. If you do want to post about it. Okay? So, yun yung sinasabi nila, think before you click, di ba? Repeat your words back. You really have to think muna how you say it before you post. Kasi your post will be dissected in case ma-filean ka ng cyber libel and they will determine if you have good motives or not. Thank you. So that would be all. And unfortunately, again, if we want to talk about discrimination, workplace and school, it would have been better if we have the anti-discrimination bill or the SOGI bill already. But unfortunately, we don't have it yet. So we find ways. There are a lot of ways or provisions in the law that we can use right now. So that is all. Thank you.